This is a wake-up call. It is a spiritual awakening on behalf of First Nations people, Canada, and all Indigenous people across the globe. Why did it have to come to this point where a woman or a man will say that they will sacrifice their life?
And it will not take just one meeting to fix that relationship that has been broken. And we will continue to hold the Prime Minister's feet to the fire.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Anthony Furey, filling in for Brian Lilly. Today, a damning report was leaked about the troubled Attawapiskat First Nations, written by the consulting firm Deloitte. It was a financial audit covering $104 million received by the Reserve between April 2005 and November 2011. The findings were not pretty. Basically, the rules weren't followed, the proper paper trail does not exist, and taxpayers are left with more questions than answers. Of course, this is being released as band leader Theresa Spence continues her so-called hunger strike in Ottawa, aimed at getting the Prime Minister's attention focused on her community and Aboriginal treaty rights. Spence has refused to comment on the Deloitte report so far. What does this mean for Reserve leadership, for the taxpayers, and perhaps most importantly, regular Aboriginals on reserves who continue to suffer despite all the money spent? Lorne Gunter is a senior political columnist for Sun Media who's been covering these issues for years. He joins us now from Edmonton. Lorne, first question, and I think it might be a bit pessimistic here. Did you see this coming?
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. You know, when Theresa Spence first became known in late 2011 because she was complaining about housing on her reserve, you know, the winter was coming. There were people living in uninsulated tents. This was Ottawa's fault. They hadn't given us enough money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ottawa, at that time, the Conservative government said, you know, there's an awful lot of financial mismanagement going on at Attawapiskat. Maybe we should appoint an outside administrator. And she complained and complained and complained. Well, methinks the lady doth protest too much. And that's exactly what happened. So Ottawa said, okay, we won't appoint an administrator, but we're going to ask Deloitte to come in and do a quote-unquote comprehensive audit of the band's finances. And what Deloitte has found is staggering, even by the standards of mismanagement on our First Nations.
Lord, I've got a quote here. Let's put this quote up on the screen here. It says, an average of 81% of files did not have adequate supporting documents, and over 60% had no documentation of the reason for payment. We were unable to determine if the funds were spent for their intended purpose. Lack of job descriptions increases the risk that critical tasks for financial management are not being performing. Segregation of duties is not clear, and accountabilities are not understood or respected. What do you take out of all that?
Well, I mean, I think the numbers should be understood. We should repeat them again and again and again. At Attawapiskat, 81% of the transactions audited by Deloitte had inadequate documentation to justify the expense. And in 60%, there was no documentation at all. So there is somewhere between $16 and $18 million a year being sent by Ottawa through Aboriginal Affairs Canada or through Health Canada to the Reserve, 16 to 18 million a year. And for 60% of that spending, there is no documentation whatever. The money goes from Ottawa to Attawapiskat, and no one can say where it went or why it was spent. It can't be justified. And in 81%, so 60%, there's no documentation. Another 21% of the expenditures, there's some documentation, but Deloitte, very good forensic auditors, couldn't find exactly what the money was being spent on. So of the 16 to 18 million Ottawa is sending of your money and mine every year, about 80% of it can't be accounted for. So please, Chief Spence, don't go preaching to the federal government. I mean, the federal government's bad enough, but if the federal government is better at managing money than you are, you got a problem.
Lorne, but we've got Pam Palmater. She sent an email to Yahoo Canada News. She's an Idle No More spokesman. She was also the runner-up in the Assembly of First Nations leadership. She lost to Sean Atleo. She says, this is classic conservative deflection. They are now desperate. They can't control the movement. I'm a little confused here because can't this Theresa Spence shenanigans, in a sense, be isolated from the Idle No More? In that, can't we name and shame all the band chiefs who are mismanaging the money, and can't we still can't we take something good out of this and use this actually as an opportunity to make sure money is well spent? Why would Idle No More spokespeople rally behind Spence? Help me here.
Why is Idle No More not as concerned about mismanagement of the funds that are going apparently to their people through the bans as they are about what Ottawa is doing? I mean, there is never any ownership of this issue on the First Nations side. There's never any, that's not true. There are several chiefs out there, several bands that have taken ownership of the problems on their reserves and are doing something about it, but they don't go and blockade the CN main rail line. They don't go to malls and have flash mob round dances.
Because I assume sensible fiscal management doesn't actually grab the headlines, so they go underreported. Is that reasonable?
That's absolutely true. And also, Idle No More, I think, and the Theresa Spence actions arise out of 4 decades of myth building. We have allowed people in the Aboriginal movement to say, oh, our problems are not our own fault. Our problems are the fault of you are not caring about us. Our problems are the fault of Ottawa and living up to the treaty obligations. Our problems are the fault of not enough money. Whatever it is, the problems are not our fault. They're mostly a lack of money. So, which is ridiculous. Ottawa spends $8 billion a year directly on Aboriginals in Canada. There's 1 million Aboriginals in Canada. Ottawa spends $8 billion a year. For instance, Ottawa spends $5,000 on average, $5,000 per Aboriginal family providing supplemental health care. That's glasses, dentistry, prosthetics, all sorts of things that you and I may or may not receive unless we have private insurance from them. We don't get them from our provincial health care programs. Ottawa spends $1 billion providing 1 million Aboriginals in Canada with those supplemental benefits. And yet still, we're talking about how badly they're mistreated.
Lorne, we got to go here, but sadly, this topic and this scandal I don't think is going away, so I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again on this. Thank you for joining us, Lorne Gunter. Folks, I got to tell you, I'm angry about this. Taxpayers should be angry about this, but shouldn't the main people who be angry about this, regular Aboriginals, people on reserves? Send me your thoughts. Anthony.Furey@sunmedia.ca. Stick around for the rest of the show.